Have you noticed that while most people chase parties, social media, and endless gatherings, some of the brightest minds simply disappear? It seems contradictory, does it not? But there is a deep reason behind this. The most intelligent do not flee from the world. They flee from the mediocrity it demands. They have realized something that almost no one notices. Social life is not designed to nurture deep minds. And it is precisely in this strategic silence that insights and power hide that most will never reach. If topics like psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. There is a strange feeling that some people carry from early on, being surrounded by people and still feeling invisible. It is not loneliness in the common sense. It is a deeper emptiness, as if the gaze of others cannot penetrate the surface. Those who think too much realize that among so many faces, few truly see. It is like watching a movie in slow motion while the rest of the world runs at maximum speed. These people discover early that social life is often just a ritual. Laughter, greetings, jokes, and trivial conversations function as a repeated choreography, a theater in which everyone plays their part. But for those with lucidity, the performance begins to suffocate. Has it ever happened to you? Leaving a party feeling an existential fatigue, as if you have spent too much energy on small things. The curious thing is that in silence, these people feel relief they cannot find in noise. While others chase more invitations and more groups, the lucid seek empty spaces where they can breathe. It is as if the mind carries a flame so intense that the external world seems too lukewarm. It is not disdain, but a difference in temperature. The internal heat is so strong that it makes it difficult to fit into the cold of social life. We live in times when volume is confused with value. Whoever speaks the loudest seems to be right. Whoever appears more seems to be more important. But the most sensitive realize that often this noise is just a distraction. They see beyond words, beyond smiles. At this moment, the restlessness arises. Is it worth spending so much energy on something that seems empty? And when this perception awakens, gatherings cease to be gatherings and become choreographies. Conversation turns into theater. Friendship reveals itself as convenience, and belonging is often nothing more than fear of loneliness. This discovery is painful, but also liberating, because it shows that perhaps distancing is not a failure but an instinct for preservation. It is at this point that many withdraw quietly. They refuse invitations, arrive and leave earlier, prefer walking alone rather than getting lost in the noise. Society calls this coldness or arrogance, but in reality, it is protection. Social life demands a high price. Laughing when there is no humor, agreeing when there is no meaning, smiling when inside there is silence. For those who think too much, this price becomes unbearable. Every false word hurts, every mask weighs, every rehearsed gesture becomes a burden. While others navigate parties lightly, the lucid feels as if carrying stones in their pocket. They cannot turn off the internal lens that amplifies everything, and the more they see, the harder it is to participate. And here, the great question arises. Is this solitude a punishment or a privilege? Is the silence, so feared by others, not precisely hiding the key to freedom? Perhaps, in reality, this distancing is not the end, but the beginning of something much greater. There is a type of solitude that does not come from abandonment, but from clarity. It does not arise because others left, but because you went deeper than them. The more someone understands, the less they can participate. It is as if the veil falls and suddenly everything that once seemed natural is revealed as artificial. From there, social life becomes a stage of repetitions. Conversations begin to sound like dialogues from a memorized play. Laughter, often, is not spontaneous, but signals that everyone is fulfilling the expected role. And bonds, which should be bridges, turn into distorted mirrors, reflecting only what each wants to see. The lucid realizes this and inevitably withdraws, not out of pride, but out of fatigue. Have you felt this? Laughing out of politeness and then asking yourself why you are still there. Or leaving a light meeting carrying a huge weight, as if superficiality drained your energy. This is the dilemma of those who see beyond. Gatherings that should nourish end up emptying. And the more this repeats, the stronger the desire for solitude grows. The common man, said Schopenhauer, is content to pass the time. The talented man tries to use it, but the man of genius needs to fill it. This is the fundamental difference. For those who think little, being with others is a distraction. For those who think too much, it can be torture. Because there is nothing more distressing than being surrounded by people and, at the same time, feeling absent from oneself. This lens of lucidity amplifies everything. The compliment that should sound like affection is heard as disguised comparison. The joke that should be light is perceived as a request for attention. The silence between phrases becomes an abyss, and this amplification hurts. It is as if every detail were a cut, every gesture a weight. While most have fun, the lucid bleeds inside. That is why they withdraw. Not with anger, but with the need to protect themselves. They refuse invitations, hide in books, find peace in solitary walks. For many, this seems like isolation, but for them, it is survival. Because those who feel too much wear out quickly, and those who think too much go insane in the middle of noise. On the surface, everything seems in place. But the lucid gaze perceives the cracks. They see the lack of soul in certain conversations, the absence of commitment in certain presences, the waste of time in gatherings that add nothing. And each of these perceptions pushes them further from the crowd. Not out of arrogance, but because it is impossible to unsee what has already been seen. And so, little by little, the lucid discovers that their solitude is not emptiness, but a refuge. A paradoxical place. They desire connection, but only endure truth. They seek gatherings, but do not accept falsification. They want to be understood, but not at any cost. And it is in this paradox that something begins to be born in silence, preparing the next step of this journey. Deep intelligence does not seek easy applause. Those who think beyond the surface quickly perceive that many social interactions are superficial, empty, and even exhausting. It is like entering a party full of masks. Everyone seems to play roles that are not theirs. And, deep down, the restless mind of the most intelligent individual feels that there is no nourishment for thought there. They feel suffocated, and silence begins to seem more precious than any trivial conversation. This heightened awareness transforms everyday gatherings into subtle little tortures. Imagine being surrounded by people who repeat cliches without noticing, while your mind flies in complex reflections about the world. The intelligent person realizes that most words thrown into the air carry no real meaning. They feel like a traveler trapped on a train that never stops, surrounded by passengers who speak only for the sake of speaking. And at this point, isolation begins to be seen as a refuge, not escape. What many confuse with shyness or antisocial behavior is actually a strategic choice. Choosing less social contact allows the mind to develop without interruptions, like a garden cultivated away from the city noise. They learn to listen to their own thoughts, to explore ideas without external distractions. It is as if solitude were a private laboratory, where each insight becomes a personal discovery. This voluntary isolation is paradoxically a form of deeper sociability, but with quality, not quantity. In silence and distance, a sharp observation of human behavior arises. The intelligent person observes without judging, captures nuances, perceives patterns that escape most. They see hidden motivations, small power games, the subtle hypocrisy of seemingly innocent interactions. This creates a kind of sensory overload. The more they perceive, the harder it becomes to participate without exhaustion. The choice to step back is not rejection, but preservation of mental and emotional energy. Curiously, society rewards verbal mediocrity and punishes introspective depth. Those who speak a lot, even without thinking, are admired. Those who think too much are seen as strange. This generates frustration and a constant sense of displacement for those with sharp intelligence. They ask themselves, why feel part of something that values so little of what really matters? And this question pushes them to places of reflection and creation that social life rarely provides. By choosing less socialization, the most intelligent individual gains freedom of thought. They create space for reading, analysis, and experiences that routine social life would prevent. It is like a role-playing character deciding to explore dungeons alone, discovering secrets and treasures others will never find. This time alone is a direct investment in intellectual and emotional development, not a cowardly escape. Every moment of solitude is actually an opportunity for evolution that the crowd will never understand. On the other hand, solitude also brings subtle challenges. There are moments when the absence of human contact generates restlessness, a feeling of disconnection that even the wisest feel. But it is precisely in this space of discomfort that creativity, intuition, and the ability to reflect on oneself and the world authentically arise. Those who flee social life do not exile themselves forever. They adapt, choose their battles, and learn that meaningful presence is more valuable than constant presence. And so the cycle continues. Stepping away from excessive social life creates space for deeper thoughts, more complete reflections, and a truer perception of reality. They learn to see the world from the outside in, not just from the inside out. And it is at this point that the mind prepares for something greater, something few understand. True mastery over oneself and the world around them. But this introspective journey naturally leads to the next challenge. The most intelligent mind quickly notices the superficiality of everyday interactions, but also discovers something curious. Silent observation yields powerful insights. They perceive behavior patterns that escape most, like gestures, repeated words, and unconscious attitudes. It is like having a lens that reveals the truth behind social masks. This attentive gaze allows understanding hidden intentions, creating a natural, almost instinctive distance from crowds that do not see beyond the obvious. While most seek approval and belonging, they seek clarity and authenticity. Every conversation becomes a subtle test. Is it worth investing energy, or is it just noise? They learn to measure each gesture, each word, and to choose when to expose themselves and when to remain silent. This care is not arrogance, but strategy. After all, time and mental energy are precious resources that they prefer to spend on deep reflections rather than superficial chats. Conscious isolation then becomes a protective shield. They learn not to be carried away by provocations, gossip, or fads that drain the mind and divert focus. It is as if they have found an internal refuge where ideas flourish without interference. This free mental space allows deeper study, personal projects, and even better understanding of one's own emotions. The more strategically isolated they are, the sharper their discernment about the world and themselves becomes. Curiously, this posture sparks curiosity in others, even effortlessly. People try to understand why they seem distant, almost unreachable. But it is not mystery. It is natural selection of energy. They do not need to be understood by everyone, only by those with enough depth to follow. And it is in this contrast between crowd and reflection that a kind of intellectual aura is built, attracting silent respect, even if few immediately notice. Even while avoiding excessive socialization, they do not completely isolate themselves from human learning. They observe and interact only when there is real gain in knowledge or genuine connection. It is like a player who chooses the matches that really matter, avoiding those that only consume resources without return. This selectivity creates balance, nourished mind, preserved energy, and more meaningful relationships when truly necessary. Chosen solitude is not sadness, it is growth. They learn to appreciate simple moments, observe details the crowd ignores, and explore thoughts that would be interrupted by trivial conversation. It is as if they were in a secret garden of the mind, where each flower represents a new idea or insight. This practice of constant introspection strengthens emotional autonomy and creates a solid foundation for more conscious decisions less influenced by external chaos. On the other hand, there is a fascinating paradox. The further they step away from the crowd, the more they understand human nature. They can see repetitive behaviors, manipulation patterns, and power games that most do not even notice. And this understanding does not arise from direct experience, but from attentive observation and deep reflection. It is like playing chess with life, anticipating moves while others have not even understood the rules. And so the journey of the intelligent between silence and observation prepares the ground for something even greater, the ability to choose relationships and environments that truly enrich the mind. They learn that it is not about rejecting the world, but selecting where to place attention and energy. And it is precisely this point of discernment that leads them to the next stage, where intelligence allies with strategy to navigate life without getting lost in the crowd. Over time, the most intelligent individual discovers that the crowd is in a hurry, while they prefer the rhythm of reflection. Every superficial interaction seems to demand too much energy and give little in return. They realize that many speak to fill the void, while they seek meaning in every word. This perception generates a kind of selective patience. They only engage when there is real value, whether in learning or in genuine connection. And at this point, solitude becomes an ally, not a punishment. He also notices that society often rewards conformity rather than originality. Bold ideas, deep questioning, or unconventional behavior are frequently seen with suspicion. This creates a natural discomfort that only increases his desire to distance himself from social life. He understands that true intelligence does not seek easy applause, but recognition for depth of thought. And this leads him to value environments richer in reflection than in popularity. Silent observation becomes a powerful tool. He learns to decode emotions, intentions, and behaviors without the need for words. It is like having a camera that captures details unnoticed by most. This type of perception allows anticipating reactions, understanding patterns, and even avoiding unnecessary conflicts. And by realizing that most do not notice these details, he reinforces his strategic distancing. Furthermore, he understands that solitude is not absence of life, but intensity of experience. Every moment alone is filled with thoughts, readings, and reflections that shape his worldview. It is like exploring a vast internal universe where every discovery is personal and transformative. He realizes that social life often disperses this energy, while introspection concentrates it. Thus, voluntary isolation becomes a space for creation and mental expansion. Curiously, distance also strengthens his capacity for empathy. By observing the crowd from outside, he better understands behaviors, motivations, and human flaws. This silent empathy does not make him vulnerable. On the contrary, it gives him discernment to choose carefully whom to approach. He realizes that the quality of relationships matters far more than quantity, and that strategic observation is essential to avoid being absorbed by the superficial. The habit of introspection creates emotional resilience. He becomes less dependent on others' approval and more confident in his own convictions. This does not mean complete isolation, but conscious selectivity, where energy and attention are investments, not expenditures. He learns to say no without guilt, preserving his mental and emotional space. And each voluntary withdrawal from social life is, in fact, an advance in personal autonomy. This stance also stimulates creativity and innovation. The mind, away from social noise, finds time to experiment with ideas, reflect on complex problems, and create original solutions. He realizes that social dispersion often limits depth of thought. By choosing to distance himself, he accesses layers of perception that remain hidden to those who live only on the surface. And this is a crucial differential in how he interacts with the world. Thus, social life becomes a conscious choice, not an obligation. He learns that he does not need to fit into every group, nor participate in every activity. Each interaction is evaluated for its real value, not habit or external pressure. This discernment prepares him for the next stage, understanding how deep intelligence interacts with the complexity of the world without getting lost in the crowd. The most intelligent mind realizes that it is not just the quantity of interactions that matters, but the depth of each one. He avoids superficial encounters because he knows that energy and time are limited resources. Every conversation must offer something: learning, insight, or true connection. When this does not happen, he withdraws silently, without drama, simply preserving his mental clarity. It is a way of protecting his inner world, where ideas and thoughts flourish freely. He also understands that the crowd tends to value appearance and status more than substance. Empty words and forced gestures are common, and he quickly detects these dissonances. This perception generates a kind of healthy skepticism. He learns not to be deceived by the superficial shine of social life. Thus, voluntary distancing becomes a tool of discernment, avoiding unnecessary frustrations and poor choices. The intelligent person observes without exposing himself unnecessarily. He can capture subtle emotions, hidden intentions, and small details that go unnoticed. It is like having a radar that decodes the unspoken language of people. This ability is not used to manipulate, but to understand, protect, and carefully choose where to invest attention. Social distance, then, is not just a refuge, but a lens that amplifies perception of reality. In silence, he finds space for self-knowledge. By stepping away from social noise, he has time to reflect on his own emotions, decisions, and values. Every moment alone is an opportunity for internal alignment, strengthening authenticity. He learns that true companionship begins with oneself, and that personal depth is a valuable resource that excessive socialization often depletes. Curiously, this strategic stance creates an aura of mystery. Others notice his distance and unconsciously attribute depth and intelligence to him. But he does not seek this impression. He simply chooses his circle carefully, prioritizing meaning over quantity. And this selectivity is what makes his interactions truly impactful. As every word or gesture carries intention and awareness, voluntary isolation also strengthens emotional autonomy. He does not depend on external approval to validate feelings or decisions. Every choice is made with clarity, free from social pressures. This does not mean complete isolation, but an inner freedom that few understand. And this freedom prepares the ground for more authentic experiences, both personally and professionally. Moreover, time with oneself stimulates creativity and innovation. Without distractions, the mind explores solutions, ideas, and perspectives that would go unnoticed in noisy environments. He learns to value silence as a source of insight, where each thought is nurtured and expanded. This constant practice turns solitude into a tool for intellectual and emotional growth, something social life often does not allow. Thus, the intelligent person discovers that avoiding social life is not escaping humanity, but seeking quality and depth. He learns to choose relationships and environments that truly matter, preserving energy and intellectual potential. And it is at this point that his introspective journey prepares the ground for the next challenge. understanding how this strategic intelligence shapes his interaction with the world in a unique way. Deep intelligence also brings awareness of the pitfalls of socialization. He realizes how other people's opinions often mask insecurity or desire for control. Every empty comment or rushed judgment is silently analyzed, and he learns to filter what he absorbs. This perception creates a kind of emotional immunity. He chooses to react only when there is real value in doing so. And this filtering is essential to preserve clarity and focus. He understands that superficial friendships consume energy without significant return. It is not about rejecting people, but evaluating whether the bond offers growth or just distraction. He carefully observes behavior patterns, noting who truly contributes and who only drains. This selectivity requires courage, as it challenges social norms that value quantity of contacts. But it is a necessary step to protect mind and time. The most intelligent also realizes that trivial conflicts are inevitable in common social environments. However, he does not let himself be dragged. He observes, learns, and avoids impulsive reactions. It is like watching a chess game, anticipating moves without being an easy pawn. This stance allows acting strategically, avoiding unnecessary emotional wear. And by learning not to react to provocations, he maintains control over his own inner world. Social distance creates space for critical reflection on values and personal choices. He questions norms, expectations, and behaviors that most accept without thought. Every insight is an opportunity to redefine priorities and align actions with real objectives. It is in this voluntary isolation that intelligence finds fertile ground for emotional maturation. And this internal clarity prepares him to deal with the external world consciously. Curiously, this selectivity also improves communication. He learns to speak with precision, choosing words that truly impact. Every interaction becomes deliberate, full of meaning, unlike the common noise of social life. And by realizing that few value this depth, he reinforces even more the importance of strategic solitude. This balance between silence and expression becomes a powerful differential in any environment. Moreover, he discovers that silent observation strengthens social intuition. He notices patterns, intentions, and subtleties that others overlook. This ability allows better decisions, avoiding common social traps. It is like having an invisible map of human behavior, where every choice is guided by sharp perception. And this strategic advantage makes social life less a battlefield and more a learning ground. Conscious isolation also promotes mental resilience. He learns to handle criticism, rejection, and misunderstandings without losing balance. Every social challenge is analyzed with distance, without drama, allowing more mature responses. And this stance protects not only the mind but also emotional integrity, consolidating his autonomy. Thus, he becomes less vulnerable to the wear that afflicts most people. And so, by understanding the risks and limits of social life, he finds a way to balance interaction and introspection. He chooses carefully when to expose himself, preserving energy and attention for what truly matters. And it is at this point that strategic intelligence paves the way for the next step, learning to turn solitude and observation into a concrete advantage for life and daily decisions. Deep intelligence learns that avoiding social life does not mean disconnection from the world, but connection with it in a more strategic way. He observes, analyzes, and chooses his moments of interaction, as if playing a complex board game. Every step is calculated, every word considered. This care turns solitude into an advantage, allowing him to absorb more than most without being sucked into the noise of the crowd. He also realizes that superficial relationships consume more than just time. They drain emotional energy. Instead of engaging in futile debates or empty conversations, he seeks quality and depth. It is like choosing to read a rare book instead of skimming through thousands of shallow pages. This selectivity makes him someone rare to encounter, but whose interactions carry real weight. And this prepares him to connect genuinely when necessary. Curiously, this strategic stance creates a perception of mystery in others. He does not need to explain his absence or justify choices. Discretion itself sparks curiosity, but he does not let himself be influenced by others' impressions. Every action is measured and intentional. It is in this space of control and observation that he finds freedom to think, act, and create. Away from the pressure of social conformity, chosen silence becomes a laboratory for personal growth. Every moment of introspection is filled with reflections, analyses, and mental experiments. He learns about himself, the world, and human patterns with a depth that common encounters could never provide. This internal space is fertile ground where original ideas and creative solutions emerge. And this is precisely what sets him apart from the crowd. Moreover, social distancing increases his emotional autonomy. He does not rely on others' validation to feel complete or successful. Every decision is made based on discernment, not external expectations. This inner mastery makes him resilient to criticism, gossip, or hasty opinions. And this silent strength is often misunderstood, but extremely powerful strategic solitude also stimulates empathy and understanding. By observing from the outside, he perceives nuances and patterns that most ignore. This ability allows him to navigate relationships when necessary, choosing moments and people that truly add value. And by knowing when to step away and when to approach, he turns knowledge into practical advantage. Making every interaction meaningful and controlled curiously, he discovers that avoiding social life expands unexpected opportunities. By investing energy in reflection, learning, and development, he becomes someone with rare insights and skills. The world then seeks him when it needs vision and depth. And it is in this paradox, stepping away to be more present, that intelligence finds its true strategic advantage. And so, the journey of one who avoids the crowd reveals a path of freedom, depth, and silent power. He learns that it is not about rejecting the world, but carefully choosing how and when to participate in it. This awareness prepares the mind for greater challenges, more precise decisions, and more impactful interactions. And it is precisely at this point that the video connects with the beginning of the story, opening space for a provocative introduction. So, what did you think about understanding why the most intelligent choose to step away from social life? Did you identify with any of these behaviors or insights? I want to know in the comments which character you want me to analyze in the next video on the channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate notifications to continue learning about these deep topics and discover how strategic intelligence can transform your life. Every step of awareness you take here is a step to mastering yourself and the world around you. These two videos in front of you are not here by chance. And what if everything you believe about yourself is just a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click now on one of the videos on the side and start breaking that mirror. You will have to risk the click. So which one will you choose?